forget to give it to you. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Any changes or anything, additions to the agenda? Okay. I need a motion on the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda. Support.
Roll call, Trish.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes, regular meeting of December 4th, 2017. Any questions on the minutes?
I have a question and a possible change here. Under council comments, where I said nice Christmas parade, wish more businesses participated. I don't believe I said that. I believe I said, I may have misspoken, but what I meant was, it's just a shame that we didn't have more businesses on Main Street that would be open, not that more businesses should be involved in the parade.
Okay.
Do I have a motion with that change to the minutes?
I make a motion that that change be added to the minutes. Am I? I still can't. And the minutes approved, sorry.
Do I have a support?
I'll support.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes?
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the manifest. Any questions on the manifest, Mr. Oja?
No questions.
Mr. Mangini?
I had one thing in here, one comment. I see our purchase power was real low again at 18,000. And on page 6, right at the bottom, trust and agency fund, summer tax refund, and then I think it was added back on. What's the deal on that, Mary?
Well, that was a refund we had to make. It was a gentleman who was not receiving the homestead credit, and when they had December board review, they awarded it to him, so we had to give him a refund because he had paid the summer.
Okay, that's all I have.
Mr. Kramer?
Only one on the North Star. Is that a monthly charge just for upgrade, or is that how much we use them or contact them?
On the support,
Yes.
that's a monthly fee.
Okay.
It's the same every month.
All right.
Mr. Pop?
I have one on the Luff's advertiser. You know, the $950 deposit. Is that, what's that for?
That's for the mailing of the winter bills, the tax bills. We send them a file, they print them. That's cost of envelopes, postage, and they mail them over. They do kind of a mass mailing for a lot of cities, townships.
Okay.
So we get a better rate going with them because they do have more parcels to send them.
Okay, that's all I have.
I have one question on 5 of 8 under the electric utility. Efficiency United Contribution, what is that? I see we have 2 of them on there.
Oh, the EO contribution,
That's-
on a monthly.
Yeah, that's the EO funds that we collect on the bill, and then we have to pay into them an annual amount. It's the same every month that we pay into them, but we review it every year. Now we'll get a new amount for 2018,
What's EO stand for?
energy optimization.
Okay,
There's a fee on the utility bills that we collect, and we have to send the money in.
so we collect it and it has to go to them. Every month, you said?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Do I have a motion on the manifest?
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2017-24 in the amount of $300,391.84.
Support.
Roll call, Trish?
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Mangini?
Yes.
If anyone has questions, they may address the council right now on anything that's on the agenda. If not, there will be a time at the end of the meeting to make your comments.
I have a comment. My name is Jean Bradford, 2465 Trevis Farm Road. I just want to know on the electricity, did we purchase electricity? Or does the hydro plant provide insufficient?
On this past month, we did purchase,
And what was that amount?
it was the
The 18,000 some odd dollars.
Thank you, that was it.
Okay, we'll move on to Downtown Development Authority. Mr. Anderson?
Okay, the next number of items under appointments and presentations, we'll go through, this is something we do every year in December. We put out advertisement early November, close the advertisement on December 14th, and advertise for our various boards and committees. The first one tonight is the Downtown Development Authority. This does have specific rules on who can serve on that board. You must have a property interest within the district. That interest could be either you own property, business owner, homeowner, or you are an employee of a business within the district. We have actually two slots open. Aileen Schinderly put in her application for reappointment, and Tim Matson has opted not to be reappointed, so we're going to definitely send him something of a letter of appreciation. He's been on since the inception of the DDA, since 1994, so he's been a long-standing member of the DDA. So that is one open seat. We have two additional applications, one from Bo Anderson and the other from Dr. Paul Hayes. So council has to approve 2 out of the 3 to fill those slots. Oh, and then Mayor Brew will sit on the DDA through the next 2 years. That is as part of the legislation that the mayor automatically sits on the Downtown Development Authority.
Well, it's a shame to me that we have 3 people here and only 2 spots to get them on. I'm a firm believer in new people getting on these boards. In the past, I personally have practically begged people to get on these boards, and we have a lot of trouble finding enough people. Some of these boards are we don't have anybody. We've got empty slots. But again, I'm a firm believer in new people, and I think Mr. Bo Anderson would be an asset. He's young, he's got new ideas, and as far as the other 2, Dr. Schinderly and Dr. Hayes, they're both well qualified, but to me, one of them is going to have to sit down. I'll make a motion, if nobody else wants to, I'll make a motion that Bo Anderson and Dr. Paul Hayes be appointed to the DDA board.
Support.
Do you want them separate? Probably.
I think because there's 2 positions, I think it would
It'd
make
be
some sense to
separate.
do it one by one.
Go individually?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll change that to Bo Anderson.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Mangini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Dr. Paul Hayes.
I'll support.
Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
No.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Okay, the next appointments would be for the Parks and Recreation Committee. This particular group is an advisory group only. It does not have direct authority to spend money. It does have a budget. Council does approve the budget and does approve expenditures. We have, over the years, have various membership levels. There's no bylaws that say that there's a specific number of members. However, we do still hold them to 3-year terms. This year, we have Mr. Anderson, Bo Anderson, and Sarah Beadala requesting to be reappointed, and Dr. Paul Hayes requesting to be appointed to the Parks and Rec for the 3-year term.
Since we have 3 for 3 open seats, can we? there you go.
I think that's because of the situation, it's a little bit more appropriate to do it that way.
I'll make a motion that Bo Anderson, Sarah Beadala, and Dr. Paul Hayes be approved for the Parks and Recreation Committee. Support.
Is that Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
And if the council would be willing, I'm willing to accept the council member appointment on this board.
Do we need a motion for that?
Oh, you won, didn't you?
Yeah, if he wants to, I would have. So if Lee wants it.
Flip a coin.
Need a motion for that? Yeah, they can make a motion on it just to formalize it. I make a motion that Lee Mangini be placed on the Parks and Recs Committee.
Support.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
Just one question on council appointment. We can either do it annually, so it'll come up again next year when we do the reorganization every year, appointments, or we could do it by term. I mean, he has 2 years left, or, we do the 2-year term deal when we talk about terms. So that's up to you guys, how you want to handle that. So, okay, the next committee would be the Jake Mangini Museum Committee. Again, we have 3 members requesting reappointment. We don't have any other applications. The members would be Jim Stonick, Gail Nicholson, and Carol Sundstrom, appointed for a 3-year term.
I'll make the motion that Jim Stonick, Gail Nicholson, and Carol Sundstrom be reappointed for a 3-year term expiring in January 2021.
Support.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
And just for a point that Mr. Mangini is on this board already, so we have a council representative. The next board is the Board of Tax Review. This is a 3-person board. We have actually 4 applicants for this position now. Mr. Ron Vivio, Mr. Darrell Harder, and Mr. George Servia are requesting reappointment, and Councilmember Lee Mangini has also asked to be considered to be on the Board of Tax Review. It's a 1-year term, so we do this every year.
I'll make it real easy on everybody and pull my name.
Okay, then with that, I'll make a motion that Ron Vivio, Darrell Harder, and George Servia be appointed to the Board of Tax Review for a 1-year term.
Support.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Okay, the next 2 items, the next 2 committees, boards, kind of go together when I work them together because of the explanation of an alternating position. The Norway Area Planning Commission and the Norway Area Zoning Board of Appeals, it's a joint commission boards that we put together when the Norway Township and the City of Norway entered into an agreement to work together on zoning, a zoning plan. And the way that the boards work is that there's a 9-member planning commission and a 5-member zoning board of appeals. Every 2 years, the majority for the boards alternates between the city and the township. So for the years 18 and 19, the city is going to have the majority on the zoning board of appeals and is going to lose the majority on the planning commission. With that being said, we have one member that's up for reappointment on the planning commission, Barb Thorne, and she has put in for request for reappointment.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Barb Thorne to the Norway Area Planning Commission for a term expiring January 2021.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
So on the zoning board of appeals, we actually gained, this is when we gained the seat, and we did not gain an application. So what we have is, there are provisions within the legislation which allow for alternates. Mr. Jim Temrowski, who is not up for reappointment, was the alternate. We're requesting that Mr. Temrowski be appointed as a regular board member. And then Mr. Mangini has put in an application also for the board, and then we'll have an open seat. And Councilmember Mangini would serve as an alternating member, which we call the alternating member, which is a 2-year term, which coincides with his term, remaining term on the council. The other thing to point out is that there are very strict requirements on participating on this particular board. One is that there can only be one member of the board from the planning commission, whether it's a township or city, and there can only be one elected official sitting on the board, whether it's from the township or the city. The township has made its appointments. There are no planning commission members or council members or board members, elected board members from the township on this board.
So what you're saying is
Lee can, yes,
legally
absolutely.
can be on that?
Yeah. And then if anybody is interested in filling the open seat, which would be the alternate position, contact the City Hall.
It would be good if we could get an alternate on this board, because this board has very strict requirements for passing anything, where if you have one person missing, one vote can deny somebody a request. So if there's an alternate, there's at least the more fair opportunity.
And due to the restrictions that I mentioned previously, we already have the Planning Commission member, Leonard Beadla, and now Council member Lee Mangini, so I can't convince either council member or board member to, Planning Commission member to take that alternate position. So it does need to be from a member of the community at large.
I'll make a motion, Jim Temrowski be approved as a regular member, and Lee Mangini be approved as an alternating member for the Norway Area Zoning Board of Appeals. Terms expiring 2023.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Okay, the only other part of the appointments and presentations it's not specifically identified, but I gave you in your packet a list of other memberships that we have on other, whether they're countywide boards or associations, where we have to designate our representative. At this point, the Electric Utility Board needs to have a representative. Mayor Brew is already a member of the North Alert Board. Jim Wiseman is our Board of Tax Review. He runs the tax review. The next number of boards I actually sit on, the EDA, the county EDA. I'm not a board member, but I'm the city's representative for communications. That makes sense for me to continue that effort, as economic development is something that the city manager is keenly involved in. The brownfield has been suspended at this point because of lack of activity, so there's really no need to continue or to worry about that at this point. The Solid Waste Management Authority meets at 11 o'clock every other month on the third Wednesday. I sit on that board. Most of the other city managers sit on that board. That board actually has a very strict requirement as well. It has to be either the city manager or the chief administrative officer, which is city manager or township supervisor, or a board member, so a council member, township board member. Can't be another staff member. Access Management Committee, not sure how many times, Jeremy, you sat on that at one time. That's not something that meets.
They meet very infrequently.
Yeah. And again, my name's on there just because it was never identified after Jeremy had left who else would sit on that. The Construction Code meets every other month, third Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Right now, I'm the member and Lee is the alternate. Central Landfill Authority meets once a year. I wouldn't recommend anybody else do that when I'm on that one. I just go up there. We have a 15-minute meeting to go over the financials. That's about it. Same as the UPPPA, we do once a year, do a teleconference. The MML is an interesting one. Every year, the biggest time, there's twice a year, there's what they call Capital Conference, and then they have their annual meeting in usually around October, downstate usually. That is more of a political situation. Again, I've been designated this year. I did not make it because I was also I needed to go to the WPPI annual meeting, and it was a conflict. I do end up with conflicts on the different boards, so that one would be a good one for someone to take. But remember, if you take that one, then we probably want to consider the travel. And it is very worthwhile. I would recommend a council member to be involved because it's very worthwhile to meet with other council members, mayors across the state of Michigan. The Michigan Municipal Electric Association, I'm actually on the executive committee on that, or the board, so I'll stay on that one. And then WPPI, right now I'm the designate and Mary is the alternate. Again, that's another good one to work with, whether as a representative, official representative, or just to participate, just to communicate with other members of WPPI.
Where do they meet?
They have a number of meetings in Crystal Falls and in the UP in Norway. We've had different meetings. Their annual meeting can be anywhere from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is their home office, all the way up to we've had annual meetings in Green Bay. So they pick a different spot every year, and then they meet a couple times a year. Did you say that? Yeah. Spring, they have a spring, like a May, and then October. WPPI does get into a little more of the technical side, but they do have quite a few council members, mayors that are involved with the executive committee and their board as representatives. If someone wanted to be the representative, I would be involved because it's just, there's quite a few different representatives or different opportunities for working with them.
So we do still have an opening on the electric utility board?
Yeah.
I'd like to put my name for that.
You want a motion on that or no? I have to.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Pop be approved for the electric utility board.
Support.
Roll call, Trish?
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Was there any other ones that anybody was interested in right now? Or if not?
If not, we
let
can
us
come
know.
back to that. Let us know. The Norway Area Planning Commission, I know we don't have an official seat, but it might not be a bad idea if somebody would just be a representative to be there to maybe help bring communications back to the council. We've had that in the past. I think, Lee, you've done that.
Yeah, I can do that.
I don't think that one needs an official motion.
All right, and if anybody else was interested in any of these,
The building codes one I'd be interested in.
all right.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Kramer be appointed to the Dickinson County Construction Code
Support.
as our city representative.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
The next meeting is actually tomorrow. If you'd like, you could take it, or if you want, I can come up there, and if you want to come with, or, yeah, we could do that. It's at 4:30, so it's not at 6. Yep. Okay. Okay,
Move on to the approval of the 2018 city council meeting schedule.
well, this is something we look at every year. At this time, you need to approve your full year calendar for your regular meetings. I know we meet them first and third Mondays of every month, but we look at the calendar, and see if there are any conflicts. Of course, right off the bat, January 1st, it's the first Monday. It's been tradition that we've looked at when we have 5 Mondays in a month, that we go to the second and fourth Mondays, rather than moving it to the Tuesday. That's the case in January, so we've moved the January 1st meeting to the 8th, and the January 15th meeting to the 22nd. The only other date on the calendar is Labor Day, September 3rd, so that does not have 5 Mondays, so we moved that from September 3rd to September 4th, which is a Tuesday. All other meetings would be first and third Mondays.
Okay. Do we have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that the 2018 schedule for the regular meetings of City Council to be on the first and third Mondays of the month, with the following exception. The January 1st and January 15th meetings would be canceled and rescheduled for Monday, January 8th and January 22nd, and the September 3rd meeting, which happens to be my Jubilee birthday, meeting would be canceled and rescheduled for Tuesday, September 4th.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of website and social media management.
The DDA has been discussing and reviewing different options on our social media Historically, the DDA has supported, whether it be the upgrades to our website, costs associated with the what we call now the social media spectrum. They've taken ownership of that as a good economic development PR tool for the city. It's been something that the city council and the city budget has been blessed to have the DDA champion over the years. But one thing that we've struggled with over the last few years is that the updating of the web page and the Facebook sometimes lags. And it's because of the priorities that we must have in the office. We've gone through different ways of trying to manage that situation, and really what happens is when we contract it out completely, it goes to somebody, and then they're still contacting the city hall. The ladies are still having to take time sending them something to put on, whether it's the council meetings or the agendas, or, so it just seems like we do just about as much work.
So you're also talking about the TV channel?
No, not the TV
No.
channel. This is strictly the web page and the Facebook.
Okay.
And when we went through with the DDA, it's not so much the documents getting put on that seems to be the problem. It's making bigger changes in the page to make it more relevant. And again, it's just we met with the DDA. We had some staff members come down. You can ask Trish. I mean, she was down. Jamie came down, and we just talked to the DDA about, it's very difficult with how much we have on our plate. So we started to look around for options, and the company that we're presenting tonight, this Premier Digital Presence, they came in, they provided a proposal for handling the management of the page, and their proposal was for $500 a month. The DDA reviewed it. I gave you a copy of the proposal. They also did an evaluation of the web page, gave their opinion on the pros and cons and goods and bads of the page. What the DDA requested, they approved. They thought paying half of that for a 6-month period was a good way to start. They requested that I bring this to council and asked if the council would support the other half and partner in this effort. And we're going to run a 6-month trial with the company and see what if those benefits are really pan out.
Are they local or no?
He's from Iron Mountain.
Okay.
With the restrictions of our kind of canned website design, are they going to be able to make these adjustments that you're talking about with centering pictures and dead space on the sides?
He believes so. He's familiar with Civic Plus, and he believes that he can do that. So that's part of that 6-month trial to see if he actually can do that.
Well, and just kind of from the business end, the $500 initial fee, is the DDA picking that up or the council? So we know for the motion.
We didn't talk about the initial fee, did we? I think you could propose whatever you feel is appropriate. And the DDA meets on Wednesday, so I can bring it to them right away. I don't believe we talked about the
I just remember when we were doing this website and we were setting it up, the restrictions made it so hard to reformat and to adjust anything.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure I know he has quite an extensive descriptions of what he'd like to see from a visual standpoint. I think the concern is more of information.
Right.
And putting information in different areas where it makes more sense or it's easier to find.
Well, and cleaning up old information that's
Yeah.
part of what he was proposing. I think that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Isn't our girls in the office still going to have to give them the information though to?
We are. We're going to have to still, and that's what we said, if he comes to us and says, I need a copy of the agenda, I need a copy of or a PDF of whatever document, I mean, it's just easier for us to put it out there. It's not so much placing the documents, it's that our site tends to become either harder to find the information or more irrelevant based on more difficult changes having to be made, more extensive changes. So we're still going to put the documents out there. He'll set up where to put them and how to put them out there, and then we'll still put those documents, because we still have to put them into the PDF. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Trish, because you've been involved in this conversation.
I haven't really talked to Jamie about it too much lately. I didn't realize it was coming up until, this past.
Is that who does it? Jamie does our website?
She does the website updating. I used to, so I have an idea. I work with Civic Plus. I remember, what are they called? Is it Civic?
Civic Plus.
Yeah. But they more just did our website, right? They don't have anything
No.
to do with the input.
No, they just created it and hosted it.
Yeah. I think sometimes, sometimes you get, like when I was doing it, sometimes you get, when you have to get something on there, it seems like you end up putting a lot of stuff right on the front. Oh, I gotta get it on, so you plop it right away in the front, because that's the easiest and most convenient. And I think what Ray's getting at, what they're talking about is, should it be in different places and on the site? I think we end up putting things right on the front because it's the easiest. Because we don't have half a day to really look and think and just really go better.
And this is what these guys do. This is not what we do. If they tell us where to put it, we're good at that.
Any other
But as
questions?
for the information, anything we can think of to put out there, I think we put out there. But it's just a matter of maybe he'll probably ask us for more information, maybe.
But he'll tell us where to put it. He'll set up where to put it, and then we just go out to that spot and place it there, rather than have to work through it and say, well, where do I put this? That's not our
But do you think
forte.
he'll also say, maybe you should have this up here or this up here?
Yeah,
Is he
he'll
gonna
do
kinda
that.
give ideas like that too?
Yeah.
So he's more of a consultant than he is actually going to upkeep the webpage?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to evaluate it. He's not going to be putting the individual documents out there. What he's going to do is go in and look at the structure we have. He's not redesigning it, but he's going to, like Jeremy mentioned, under the restrictions we have with this particular design, he's going to clean it up and then probably move the documents around. But also, as we go along, he's going to advise as to where we would place something. It's not placing it out there that's really killing us. It's like Tricia said, it takes a while, and just to go through and find out if something's irrelevant or find out if something's out of place, that takes a long time to go through all those pages.
And it will be just a 6-month trial.
It's a 6-month trial.
Any other questions from council?
I guess I'd be for it as long as they will cover up half the cost of initiation for DDA.
In the motion, should we stipulate if there's any startup costs?
Yeah, if we didn't address that at the DDA, so if you'd say half the cost per month and half the cost of the administration or the startup, then I'll bring it to him on Wednesday and we clean that up. I don't think they'll have a problem with that, to be honest with you.
Or if you want to go to the DDA, we could come back. It's up to council.
Is this something that has to be done right now, or probably?
My input from the DDA is to do what Ray suggested. I don't think that'd be good for the administration. That's just something I lost in the shuffle. I don't think DDA's not going to be a problem with that.
Right, but what if the startup cost is a couple of grand?
Well, it says in here it's
It says
500.
500.
Oh, it is okay, I missed that, okay, my mistake.
So I go ahead and do it with that contingency. We can either
I'll make a motion, the city council agrees to pay 50% of the premium digital presence cost of $250 per month for 6 months and 50% of the startup.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Move on to Oak Crest Property Surveying Service.
Yeah, we talked about this at the last meeting. It was brought up and get moving forward on the cost for surveying services. Mr. Pip's been working with us on this project, and his proposal for finishing off all of the legal work needed, or the surveying work needed to give to legal to get the proper deeds and property locations is $8,000. I provide you with his email. He also did add about, there were some questions that came out, we were talking with the Parks and Recreation Committee. Remember when the Bike Path Committee was here, and they were talking about various phases with the single track, and Mr. Pip has graciously outlined that he would go out at no cost and flag at the appropriate time the areas that are close to the golf course. So I thought that
really
was,
nice of him.
that is nice.
How much land is he surveying out there?
Excuse me?
How much land is being surveyed out there?
Oh, it would be approximately, what was it, about 20 acres? 15 acres? Is that about, sound about right?
Plus all the parcels and...
They're about anywhere from 3 to 5 acres apiece, and there's about
Yeah.
6 of them, 6 or 7 of them.
Is there power anywhere near those lots, right?
We have, yes, yes, we have to bring the power to the lot. So when we start talking about pricing the lots, we'll.
That's included in the price of the lots?
That will be.
Power will be there.
Correct.
But the power isn't there yet.
It's not there yet. Tim provided me with an estimate on putting PEDs on all those properties. So we have a good plan on to do that, and an estimate.
Definitely talking underground then.
Yes.
Was this budgeted?
This was not budgeted.
But it's something we have to have done.
I
If we-
agree
if we
with you,
wanna-
Kenny, I just don't like the...
Yeah. If we want to sell the
That's not
property.
budgeted.
I know.
That's a standard question, right?
Yeah, that's for 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion that PM surveying be approved for a price not to exceed $8,000 to perform the surveying on the city's Oak Crest Drive properties.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the WWTP SCADA project change order.
This particular change order request, I placed it as a SCADA change order request. It's really something that works with the SCADA, not something that's directly SCADA. Jesse is here tonight, Chris is here. We worked the last couple of weeks on getting clarification on the change order. There's been a number of items, they laid it out for you. I outlined them as projects 1 through 6, I believe, yeah, 1 through 6. As you can see, I've tagged 1, 2, 3, and 5 as something that, for council to consideration. Number 4 is something that we need to discuss, but I don't think that we should pass it at this point. It's not something that can move forward until, in the field anyway, until the spring. We do have some delivery, engineering and delivery restrictions, but I need some further discussions on that particular change order. That one was actually for $30,000, so it's it's the bigger portion of this request. And the last item was, originally we were looking at putting this under Jeff Tolsma's contract, but I think that this is better served working outside of that and just working with Mr. Fairchild in FDS. That saves $8,000 of markup.
So number 6, you're just gonna get rid of?
Yeah. So the total, the cost of the change order is $59,534. Any direct questions on the details of the change? The guys are here tonight, they could answer those questions.
I don't necessarily have a direct question for them. As I read through it, it makes it look like some of this work has already been done.
Yeah, some of the work has been completed and in process.
Why wasn't that work brought to the council for approval?
There's various answers to that question. Mainly it came in pieces. I didn't get the actual final change order request until a couple weeks ago, but there was some on-site discussions going on, and they were moving forward with some items like B&B Electric had to put in some conduit. They had to do this at the time they were putting in, some of the other work that Champion was doing. So that's the best answer I can give you. And I think there was some site directives that happened, and
So,
I'm looking at these cameras are already placed in there? Or do we have to, by law, do we have to have these cameras? Or
I think
by
those cameras
code?
were part of, so they know what they're doing. Chris, I think you handled some of the requests on the cameras. I think they were,
The cameras were extra that Bob had asked to have in that, and we're still in a separate building from the main plant where the office is. And there's multiple processes going on there, having to do with sewage treatment, one being rag collection, which is actually debris being dumped into a bag. And Bob will be able to monitor that in case there was any spillage happening in that building. There's another process called drip removal that also has a container that's being filled up with material that he wants to be able to monitor remotely, making sure there wasn't a mess being created in that building. And then the third camera is actually going to oversee the outside clarifiers, so you can keep an eye on the levels as they're moving sludge from clarifier digesters to the sludge press machines.
So this is all new stuff that we've never done before?
Well, we have some cameras in the sludge press that we put in 2 years ago, so you can monitor that process. The original project had 3 cameras in it for security, and one that was actually overlooking one of the clarifiers that was supposed to be in that. The second camera should be further away from the clarifiers, so you can monitor that. The request that the supervisor put in to have that ability to monitor.
so you didn't know anything about these requests?
I knew bits and pieces of the request, and we talked about it, off and on the cameras, or different parts of it.
The cameras are not, that's not that work.
Double check it out.
I always have a general dislike when a change order is increasing the project by over 50%. That's a new project, that's not a change order. It should have been in the original project if it was going to be that big of an increase.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I called it a change order, but like I said, I pulled it out because we could deal with it with Jesse, and it actually, like I said, a major part of this is that when this SCADA part of the project was being designed, it was designed as a standalone and not networked into our system, whereas the electric and the water and everything else is put into our network. That was something that we said that it really should take that SCADA and actually have that information into our network for various reasons. One is security, so that we can use our network security along with that. So I called it a change order, and that's probably when we first started looking at bringing this to council, I was just going to add it to that contract, but it really is a standalone project, in my opinion, after we looked at it. I didn't change it from change order, I just left it as.
Was this
kind of a component.
completed already?
Some of it has been worked on, yes.
What roughly estimated value is completed, do you think?
Would you guys have an answer to that question? You guys, would you have an answer to that question? Roughly how much?
The lower section has some of it. So I'd say that's in there. Is that line item out the value?
The $12,000 for the blower controls?
Yeah. Blower controls are, they're done to that point. We started when we left the city, just going to go ahead. Kind of had our own risk, because a lot was coming in to the clarifier with, going to get all of this reason. And that was going to damage all the piping and everything that was in there. The part that would actually control the floors and make them run, hadn't been supplied by other suppliers. It was specified in the contract, but it's not there, for whatever reason.
So that's just it. If it wasn't supplied, why did we hire that out for an additional 12,000 rather than one after the original contract?
When it was in there.
Yeah.
But it had to be done at the time?
Well, it had to be done at that time.
So is that something we can go back after?
Well, the work is already done.
No, and he's saying that had to be done.
Yeah.
Because it was freezing. So I understand something like that.
But it was an extra $12,000 to that project that should have been looked into through the contract originally, right? That work should have been performed by somebody other than you, let's call it?
Yeah, it was specified as part of the contract specification, so.
So at this point, though, we're out 12,000 on something that should have been contracted.
Well, it was, the control system for the blowers was specified as part of the project between Dunlop and Jeff Halsman. But I think, in terms of I'm wrong, these guys got involved, they felt there was a better, use the word better for lack of another word, better way to do it or different way to do it. And, you know, we thought, and I haven't been convinced that the control panel and the system that was put together could work, but not work as well, perhaps, as somebody thought it should work. And I don't know, I mean, we had those discussions down there. I think the decision at the time, that, and Ray was involved in that, was that these guys were the on-site experts with some of that, and they're really involved with the city's doing the systems and all this networking stuff. And my recollection is that we made a decision to let them do what they thought was best for them to do this. I don't know at the time we knew it was going to be $12,000. I don't think the price was out there. Maybe it should have been, but Jesse said, we were in the midst of having to decide something because of the numbers of the plan. And so that decision was made probably between Ray and I. I mean, I'm a little remote here on the side because it was all the contract directly to the city, but I was involved because of what was in the original project design.
So is this in the project?
The control system, there was a control system for the blowers specified in the project. We ended up going a little different direction, did not get the actual control panel, which we are going to look at as a credit from, because that was with Dunlop's contract, and I don't know, Justin, I don't know if you know the credit that might be involved in that control panel, but it's on the list of things to discuss with Dunlop, and that they never furnished that control panel, because we kind of headed in a little different direction control-wise. So I don't think
that's the reason why we didn't furnish it. We went that direction because there was no panel to do the controls.
They would have been made to furnish the panel. The panel was in the contract. They missed it. And they admitted, somebody, there's gun lock, there's B&B as the sub, there's Energetics, the supplier, and our perception was, it didn't matter, because the control panel was specified in there.
As part of the board's
Well, whoever, there was a control panel and system specified in Dunlop's contract for the blowers. Whether the control panel came from the blower manufacturer, or we don't care where it comes from. That's between the contractor and the subs. That panel then, because it took a different direction, the control system, which is very complicated. The panel was never used, we never made the contractor furnish that, whether it was the blower manufacturer or whoever, we never got it on the job. So in our mind, there's a credit due, whether they missed it or not, doesn't matter, it's in the project. But there's a credit due on that aspect of the control system, which is on the list. Many things to discuss with Belmont Council. But I don't know if that whole control panel system that was supposed to be furnished, it wasn't. Is it a $2,000 item or a $6,000 item? I don't think it's a $12,000 item, but I really don't know. I was going to actually, Jesse gave me a contact name and number from Mirrell's or somebody to call and actually find out, which I haven't done yet, but we can actually call them and ask them what that original control panel was going to cost.
Well, and they must have had to put it in too, right? In their original
Right.
bid.
Right, I don't know, yeah, somebody down the line, B&B, Energetics, whoever, Neuros, the blower manufacturer, somebody would have had to furnish and install that control system. And these guys went a little different direction. The velocity of that control system, that's what the 12,000 is.
Yeah. We didn't just take off on a different direction. We brought this up in September, brought it up in October.
No, but your control approach, Jesse, was a little different direction than the original specification.
Yeah,
That's what I meant.
Give what it would have buying a box, put it on the wall, it does what it's supposed to do when we tie it into SCADA. So when that box wasn't there, after talking about it for a couple of months and things start freezing, we said, well, we'll just do the control from a different box. It's just a computer, we'll save you buying the box, and the PLC won't work. We'll just write the program in a different box.
So other than the 12,000, what else is complete in this?
It sounds like B&B's conduit is complete.
What, Jesse, you want to come up to the,
Yeah.
it'd be better.
It sounds like B&B's portion is complete for doing conduits. They've run a conduit out to.
You want a copy of this? Do you have a copy of it, Jesse? It's the same, I just numbered it.
So it's item number 2.
Yeah, item number 2.
And they run a conduit out to the outfall shed down by the river for networking that's coming. Then they have additional conduit, the wire fiber that was not included in the initial design. That's for actually bringing in the city's network. I guess that's the same as run conduit and install additional electrical connections required for cameras and networking. No, that's a different one. So that's specifically at the headworks building. It was included in the scope to remove the city's network from the facility, but it was not included in the scope to bring it back. So B&B had to run conduit to literally bring the fiber back into the building and connect the city's network.
So that just wasn't in the initial
That
bid?
wasn't in the project, right?
And that was probably a Tulsa thing.
What do you mean a Tolsma thing?
I don't
It was
know.
going to be somebody other than Jeff.
Well, shouldn't that have been part of the original bid?
Well, Jeff Talsma was involved as a sole source selection, and he put together his proposal.
His proposal says the networking to be provided by the city. And then I'm not as familiar with what they have done at the Headworks building for cameras and networking. Have they run conduit for, nothing done there yet? Okay.
So as far as the
Portions
GO-TEC,
of number 2 have been done, not all of number 2.
Some of number 2 was done?
it's not like pretty much all of number 2 is done.
Main building,
What's it?
Less than half of number 2.
okay, so
Okay.
main building downfall shed has been done. Conduit for communication wire fiber not included in initial design is done. And conduit and install electrical connections for cameras and network building at the headworks is not complete yet. As far as we know, they've been in there,
It's not completed.
not as of today.
We only put conduit, they only put the conduit in, they had to go underground. That's the, one of the underground conduit has been completed, because they had to get it done before Dunlop poured concrete. So that's why they put it in.
And when did Gunlock pour the concrete? Do you remember?
October, they started in September, October.
Okay.
So this was done 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Is there a separate underneath this, and the full shed?
The,
That whole-
yeah, the whole outfall thing has its own line item for us to
Yeah.
provide an IO drop.
I think the point to make there is that originally Bob put together his own little design for a chlorine analyzer on that was put in the project on the wish list item. I don't know if you guys remember looking at those. That, what he was proposing to do down there, this chlorine analyzer stuff, was a $7,000 item. And after he got talking to DEQ more about requirements and looked into it more and more and more, that became a much larger chlorine analyzer system down there than he had originally figured. And I think that was part of the reason why this additional control stuff and everything that's in that line item. But what he was going to do originally was very simple.
Off the original wish list, that did not happen though, correct? Like that
Yeah,
wish,
$7,000 was actually approved, but that's actually turning into a much larger quantity analyzer equipment installation on it.
So,
Not as part of this.
something completely separate.
Well, it's just an expansion of what Bob originally was, thought was going to be there, so something much more elaborate and bigger, but the control part of it on here is a result of that change in his thinking on the system down there, that outfall shed.
So instead of being a $7,000 project, it's now a $17,000 project.
It's 17,000 there, it's 30,000 in equipment. You haven't seen that.
That's right. I mean, for the amount of money that's spent in the council not to even be presented with any of it, my question is who approved it?
Yeah, we went ahead without any real approval. I won't sit here and say Ray told me to do it, Bruce told me to do it. I emailed him and said, hey, we're gonna do it, or your stuff's gonna freeze up. We'll just we'll roll with it, we'll take our.
So if it would have froze up though, the contractor would have been liable for it because it was in the contract, wouldn't have to do it.
It very well could have been.
So it would have been up to
People may
them.
have
So
pointed
this
at
was
me and
just,
said, boy, we wish you'd have done that. And I don't want Gunlock or their subs to
Yeah,
never want to
well-
work with me again, so we did it.
Yeah, there are minutes, actually, I was at the meeting, and I think it was a progress meeting, wasn't it, Jesse, actually? But there are minutes of the meeting where we directed him on this blower thing to do what he thought was best, and I picture one of this other control panel. These guys are now on the scene, and they had the best handle on the best way to do all that control stuff. And I think it was probably Ray and I together, we said, look, we gotta make a decision. You guys do that control work, you get that thing going, and do it the way you think is the best way to do it. The only thing at the time is we didn't really have the detail that was gonna be all right. I don't know if that would change anything.
well, I think the point, you know, with these guys and me too, I don't have a problem with the work that was done, but I mean, this is a big amount, it should have been approved, or at least the council should have been aware of what was going on, which has, that's not your responsibility or Chris's responsibility.
We should have been notified. I mean, if this work and talk and conversation started in September, we're in December. why is it just now being presented?
2 weeks ago was the first time all these costs were put together.
Absolutely, but the work was being performed since October. So, I mean, why was that not presented to the council?
Does anybody have any?
And is this gonna, for
questions?
any contractor that does work for us, is this gonna be able to say, hey, we're just gonna do something without approval of the council?
Any other questions for Jesse? Thank you for being
Thank
here
you, Jesse.
tonight,
Thank you,
Jesse. Any other questions on this?
I just have a comment more than anything, but I have a hard time approving $59,534 on this when it was never presented to the council.
Well, much of that is being presented.
But
Tonight, that's not.
$30,000 of it has been spent already, roughly.
Yes.
Which even 20,
Mine is accurate at 12.
even at 20,000, when it's still not presented to the council, is a big deal. I understand that the work that has been performed probably should be paid, but as far as the rest of it goes, I would put a hold on it of some sort. So it can be reviewed and talked about through the council before the work is performed. If we can do the grant.
Well, trying to piece together what's done, what's not done, what was, I'm kind of getting as I'm reading between the lines, there were some things that were on-site calls that had to be done. We've been working with Jesse on a few different issues for some time, and it sounds like Bruce and Ray have been in communication with them and have attended these meetings with the kind of the update meetings. I haven't attended any of those, so I don't know the exact specifics. I know Candy's been to quite a few of them and works with the contractors. I understand and can feel the tenor and hear the tenor of the council concerning some of these. I guess, as Ray pointed out, it's not necessarily a change order per se, it's additional items.
These are additional.
And whether or not I recall a previous meeting, we had some requests during this project for some wish list items. And I don't know if this is an extension of that or where it came from some of these items with I know the council's had some pretty intense discussions about video cameras in the past and the need or not need for them, and I don't know if this falls in there a little bit as well. But I sense the council's skittishness or concerns about having a request for this amount placed before it. And I guess in discussing it with Ray, kind of now, whether or not the comments we've made in the past, when we're doing this project, we need to keep this wastewater treatment plant project moving forward. I don't know how essential some of these items are. And I hear Jesse talk about, well, if I didn't do it, your thing was going to flood and it was also going to freeze. And, at some point, because of our relationship with Jesse, and it sounds like there was some communications as well, he was kind of stepping out of the box and using some common sense to protect and preserve our assets.
But under that same thing, if it was under contract, they should have been liable for if something did happen.
Well, and that's where it comes back with Bruce as far as the questions on credits. At the same time, sometimes an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of flesh later on. And that could be debated back and forth. I hear where you're coming from, Councilman Pop. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer on that. To sit back and, we have a duty to mitigate any damages. And so if we knew it was going to freeze and did nothing, and it caused damage, it would come back on us as well to come back and say, well, we have 10,000 in damage. Well, we knew it was going to freeze, but we let it freeze anyway. Then they would have a defense of we didn't mitigate our damages or take steps to try to mitigate those damages. So it's...
As a business owner, I'm not going to go and do something because I thought it had to be done. I'm going to contact and do that.
So-
This is hard for me too.
Nutshell, Councilman Kramer, as far as putting a stop to some of these items, I guess I would ask City Manager Anderson to kind of help clarify a little bit of some of these projects. Some of them, it seems as though they are near completion, some of them haven't started at all. You know, the council can always direct and indicate to slow down on some of these items and have a further clarification on some of these, maybe at the next council meeting as well, for some additional information.
I think maybe just table the whole proposal, requesting a breakout of the actual dollars expensed versus what hasn't been done yet, and bring that back to the next meeting. And then I think we have to put together a more clear description for the council as to the validity, I guess, of whether the projects are warranted or not warranted.
And identify what is needed.
Yeah, what's needed.
What's needed versus a want.
Correct. And what, if we don't do it, what's the downside of not doing it?
Well,
Convenience is not a downside, convenience is convenience.
Yes.
If we have an operational, structural problem by not doing it, that's a different story.
Absolutely.
And I don't know the operational answers to those. You know, that's something we'll have to sit Bob down and engineers and,
Now, Chris, this camera system, it'll go right into the one that we have now, so everything will just go into it.
Yeah, the big expense of the cameras was that there was, the network was designed to so we had to build the infrastructure over the networks, over the city network, over there. The cameras themselves are pretty minor piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
We also need the ability, and networks built in for the guys to actually be able to bring up the screen, the SCADA screens, otherwise your computer, by having the network over the network still monitor processes. So these are all extra items that Bob requested.
So it can be monitored 24 hours.
So they can
If
monitor.
he's somewhere, hey,
Yeah, they can monitor either after hours or weekends. That was the base concern, that these processes are running 24/7.
Yeah.
They're only there 7 to 3. With the cameras, you can be able to monitor, physically view, virtually view
Yep.
the process happening. So if, the bag fills up, or the tank fills up, he's not coming in on one day and he's sitting in 2 feet of, water.
Yep.
So that was the
Okay.
process.
And I mean, I think the reasonings are, there's reasonings for this, but I still think it comes back to if these were things that he wanted or he thought he needed down there, should have been brought to council to approve it. Now, with Jesse's, what he had going down there, that's a little different because if he wouldn't have did what he did and then the panel wasn't there, then you had the liability of it freezing up. So that's a little different, even though we should have been aware of the change.
well, I think we owe an explanation on a discussion with the contractor as well. I mean, I haven't had a chance to go back through, like, the discussion about what we would go to the contractor and say, okay, it's gonna cost $12,000, but maybe we get an $8,000
Credit.
Credit.
I have no idea what that number would be, and I think that would be appropriate for you to, have that number in our discussion.
My perception at the time, sitting there, and it might have been a bad one, there was no reason, I had no facts, but I kind of had the perception that the direction that Jesse was going with this control system was probably going to be washed with the direction that was specified. I didn't have any input as to why it wouldn't be, so I'm thinking that that's fine. He's the guy, he's the expert here, do it whatever way you think is best, in my mind, thinking that's probably going to be a wash. If we were to go back in time, and yet we had to make a decision because of all this crazy stuff, the appropriate thing in theory to do is say, okay, Jesse, what's yours going to pass? What's this other one going to get accredited, and how's that washing out? That would have taken some time, and we kind of got that to went around the guts, so pull the trigger.
And I want to clarify the camera stuff, all that $10,000 on that first project, none of that's been completed. That was presented to the council tonight, but just for you guys to payroll.
There's nothing been purchased or?
The only thing that was a suggested project, $12,000.
Yes.
And a little bit that DEP had to do for the city network, and the underground time that they had to put in. And the reflection for the time. Yeah, we haven't done anything with the health ball shed, several telephone conversations. And the station number 5, similar engineered and put together a proposal. Submitted that.
One thing though, I can recollect, we put a halt on some of the purchasing and requests on the outfall, correct?
You may have, yeah.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything happening, at least with FPS. So there wasn't really anything at all. We had received a purchase order due to a change order or anything together to do it.
Yeah, I guess my point is that it wasn't just a carte blanche that they could just do whatever they wanted to do. I do remember halting, that might have been the what I'm thinking of is, we mentioned, Bob said, nope, we got to get the figures, we got to get all of
Those have
this.
just been sitting as proposals on the desk.
Yeah.
So we haven't been moving down any of these other projects. Just the boards and what's required to get the network, the SCADA system on the city's network
And we had to do that, right?
in order to get your apartment. We did the telephone contract. We actually modified the telephone contract, incorporated the council for approval, and added actually equipment needed for the network. We couldn't get the D&D part into that same contract as they were contracted with the law. So that's why we added this January. So they're all there said to go in a different direction.
Yeah, B&B is a subcontractor to Conlock, so any work that they did really belongs to that. And not the Tulsa work.
And why are we getting the change order? Why are we getting the change order in front of us for the 16,500 from B&B Electric? That was part of the main.
Well, that wasn't, the 16,000 was both on.
But they're still subcontracted under Gun Latch.
Right.
So why would we try to absorb that?
Because we're putting it under FDS's project here.
Yeah,
Or
that-
the overall project, because it's including all the extra stuff that we were proposing.
And that could go either way. I mean, from a theoretical standpoint, that could go either way, I suppose.
Yeah, we were just trying to make it simple.
They were trying to include everything in it. I mean, that's just a technical thing. It's good if that $16,000 for B&B went on a gun lot change order, it'd still be there. And, the question is, and the idea always is that we want the project costs to cover all the costs. And there's been a lot of discussion with some of this stuff, but, Bob has requested from the operational standpoint, and you can understand the operator down there and those guys, they have things they'd like to have and want, and sometimes we gotta call time out a little bit because it just keeps going, it's like one of those things. And we've done that some of that, but the idea was that somehow in this whole thing that the city was not gonna have to come up with a lot of money out of your own pocket unless it was something that was never considered and you wanted to do it, and the city decides that there's budget in your sewer fund to cover something that may not be covered in the project, which is a city decision.
Yeah, but there's a difference between if you need it and your wants. And anything he just wanted should have came to council before we had it done.
I think it is. I think anything you just wanted is, the condos we had some that was done was neat, not done.
Okay. Anything else?
How do we make that motion?
To motion to table it.
Just motion to table?
Till the next meeting?
I'll bring back specifics on what we expensed, and then we'll have these broken down a little bit differently on, with a little more information, and we do have to have a conversation between now and then with Gun Law, or look at the contract, because they should know when, before they pass this.
I think we've got to research that and not just ask them what that would be, because we've asked contractors for credit.
Well, our next meeting is January
You don't
8th.
ever know what they get.
Yeah, absolutely. Our next meeting is January 8th. Our next council meeting is January 8th. We should have something back to them by January 8th.
So somehow, between us, we've got to get a good handle on what we think that is. Then it becomes a negotiating thing with the contractor, but we need to know what we think that is.
I just think there was a lot of confusion on this, especially because it said SCADA, I think, you know, and I just thought it was part of the original project, you know, so I think there was a lot of misunderstandings here.
I apologize for that. I, quite frankly, didn't know how to label it. I mean, it's, you can see so many different types of things, so.
And I just think from now on, I mean, you know, I understand that you're gonna run into things that have to be done, but maybe even a heads up to the council, hey, we ran into this. It, you know, it has to be done, and then, and anything else, it's gotta be, approved before it's done. Anybody else agree with that?
Yeah, I think it all needs approval before it's done.
Okay. So do we got the motion, did we get the motion to, table it or postpone it?
I'll make
till
a
the next
motion
meeting?
to table the USDA-RD WWTP project till the next meeting.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
I don't think that's the right one. It's the WWTP SCADA project change order.
I'm sorry, yeah, the change order? Yeah. Well, it would be it's the whole thing. I mean, it's all one.
Just from a definition standpoint.
Oh, okay.
So it's, because that's how it's.
It's the
Stated.
SCADA proposal, changeover, number 1.
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval USDA RD water project pay request.
The next 4 items are pay requests that we've seen at this time of the month for the last how many months for the project. It's the water project pay request. We're paying out all but $5,000. So the pay request is for $119,495.80.
Ray, you should point out that the $10,000 we agreed to applies on the water project. So each one will see $5,000.
Okay, I'll make a motion we approve USDA RD water project pay request in the amount of $119,495.80.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Same as with the sewer project, total pay request is for $157,270.29.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the Norway City Council approves the invoices for the sanitary sewer project pay request in the amount of $157,270.29.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Now, on the wastewater treatment plant project, This project is still underway, as we had just previously discussed. The pay request is for $274,142.18. If you look at the breakdown that I provide on your council reports, you want to note that we do have still some contingency. We have the equipment cost still in the project. As I pointed out in the memo, the equipment is something that we're holding back on at this point. However, it is becoming more of an issue as we move along. Later on in the communications, we do have deficit elimination plans that we're putting in front of you. So there's still some questions that have to be answered before we can move on some of these other items. But the pay request and the contractor's work is pretty solid. So I'm just pointing that out as editorial.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve USDA RD wastewater treatment plant project pay request in the amount of $274,142.18.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
And the last item is we call it the local share pay request. A good part of this is doing the extra surface pavement, but there was some additional water and sewer work that we did underground in that budget. The final pay request for this local share is $16,864.53. The balance shows $24,780. You're shaking your head.
That was the number box, that was the original number. The 16,000 is simply the retainage that was held on all the pages.
Right.
There is
So-
no more.
No, but that's paying back the retainage that we withheld, so we have to pay that amount.
That's all, there's no work done on this. This estimate is just the retainage.
Correct.
It's held on previous work.
Correct, but we're passing the payment of the retainage. I'm just pointing out that from our original budget, we're $24,780 under the original budget that we had or the original amount council approved for the project.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that pay request 8 submitted from Bosco for local share work and city's water and sewer project to be approved for an amount of $16,864.53.
Support.
Yeah, Ray, can you confirm that amount?
16,579.48.
Okay, that's different than this one. This one is $16,864.53.
Then up
But
above
then
was
above
the...
on the thing, you have 16.5.
16,579.48.
579.48.
Okay, down below it's a different number.
So it's for 16,579,
48.
48, okay. For an amount of $16,579.48.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to Resolution 2017-30.
This particular request comes from a local group called Saintly Stitchers. They meet down at the St. Mary's Church. They are looking for a gaming license. It's typical if you do raffles of any sort, 50/50s. As part of their request, they need a resolution from the council for the state that basically says they are who they say they are. So that's what our resolution 2017-30 basically states.
Is this a one-time thing then, Ray, and this is good for as long as the St. Louis Stitchers are here, or do we have to do this every year?
Our resolution is, I think, is good as a one-time thing. What they have to do to reaffirm it is, I'm not quite sure. They probably have to do some and something annual, or each individual raffle requires some kind of a request. Unless they get a block. Our request is just to verify that they are.
They are what they are.
They are what they are. It doesn't also say has anything to do with the details. Grant and I went through this in quite some detail.
Yeah, we did look into it a bit. I think it's, when you're looking for an organization like that, I think they're looking for like a raffle license. And this is just asking, do we know, in essence, does the council recognize them as a local charitable organization? The St. Louis Stitchers, I think they do some scholarships and give some money back and work for the community, and are they recognized as such versus like some type of other organization that the council looks at and says, well, hold on a minute, that's not really what they do. We didn't look into their corporate position, their bylaws. We don't look into that. That's not our obligation. It's just the gaming boards down in Lansing. They just want to make sure that from a council's perspective, from a community's perspective, if you will, that the St. Louis Stitchers is a charitable organization, and they'll look into that aspect of it as well. And Lee, I think you had asked, how long is this good for? If I remember, looking back, it's good for a couple of years, and if they want to renew again, they have to ask for recognition from the council again at some point.
Do I have a motion
I
on?
make a motion that resolution 2017-30 be approved.
Support.
Pop and Kramer? Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to resolution 2017-31.
As I mentioned previously, we, both our water and our wastewater, State of Michigan wants us to put together, or requires that we put together a deficit elimination plan. Both of these funds, due to the timing of the project and the funds, have a negative position come June 30th of last year. It's something the state said we need to tell them that we're in an approved or acceptable position within the next 5 years. As I showed you or Mary and I put together within that 5-year period of our normal budget, that both the water and the sewer are going to be in a positive position. The water does come back at a quicker pace after 2.5 years. The sewer does go out to the 5-year, but it is in a positive direction. One of the requirements, though, that it is positive at the 5-year period or after the 5-year period, that's one of those where we're going to probably have to put in a transfer unless we make some structural changes within the fund over the next 5 years, which we talked about different opportunities that we're going to have to look at on the expense side. So at this point, we are required to have this submitted within the next couple days, and council approval is required for us to do that on a resolution.
Do I have a motion on resolution 2017-31?
I make a motion that resolution 2017-31 be approved.
Support.
It's 31 for the water or for the sewer?
31 should be for the water.
Water.
31's for the water, 32's for the sewer system.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to resolution 2017-32, which is the sewer system elimination plan.
I just got one comment on that. Our plan is just showing, and at the end of the time, we'll transfer enough money to make it positive. We did that with golf, even though intent was never there to do it. Is there the intent to actually transfer it, or is it just going to keep getting bounced out 5 more years? Show it on paper, but not...
The intent is to do it, and one of the differences is that the slope of your fund is going in the right direction. It's just not fast enough recovery for the state, whereas in the golf, it was going in the opposite direction. We kept trying to reverse that, and we just didn't make it.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that resolution 2017-32 be approved.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
No.
We'll move on to Resolution 2017-33.
This particular resolution is the approval of our Municipal Electric Utilities of Wisconsin Compliance Service Agreement. We brought this, if you remember at the last meeting, we brought the plan and our safety plan and you know, some of the performance that we've done over the last year with our safety program. This is a 2-year agreement with the MEUW for the program. I think at this point I'd answer any questions you have concerning the contract or the program. We've had some conversations in the past relative to, you know, to the agreement or to the program itself.
Right. So we got him at 25% right now?
Correct.
Okay. Well, is this the only company that does this? I know that was a question in the past.
That's the only company we found that had this type of program. We asked a number of different organizations that we're associated with, and what you have to do is you have to have a company that's willing to have someone, an employee, an employee, and to take that on. So, I mean, I'd go back 6 years or so since when we started. You know, we struggled with finding someone to be able to come to do this.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining with what we get, I'm just asking the question.
Now, we talked about in the past too, about keeping him where he was at, 25%. Is he caught up? Are we sitting pretty good where we're at right now?
We are. We
where we
did
can
what,
lower it now.
we did what we said we were gonna do over the last 6 months. Looking at the plan as a whole, we have quite a bit more to do to finish off the whole safety program plan, and that's what our objective is in the coming year, is to keep moving forward with other parts of that plan.
Can we sign a 6-month contract with them instead of going another year to see where we're at again, so we can cut down to where he's at now?
I'd have to ask them if they were willing to go on small, short-term contracts. You know, that, traditionally we do, this one is a 2-year agreement, actually.
Yeah. But I know we said we were gonna come back and talk about it again.
Right. We did this 6 months ago, and we wanted to show that we are doing what we say we're doing.
Yeah.
With the agreement. I think the biggest part of our discussion was the 25% or 20%, 5 days a month or 4 days a month. You know, and I think in our conversation, I think we could switch the percentages in the midterm of the contract.
Okay.
Because the way it's set up, it's based off of that percentage.
Has it always been a 2-year contract?
No, I think the last one we had was a 1-year, wasn't it, Mary?
I think we just had a 1 year.
Yeah.
Did we have a longer one before that? Or was it just year to year?
I thought they were all just year to year.
I think they were year to year, but they rolled over if there was an agreement.
We didn't terminate.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the safety thing, I just want to know where we're at, and we're sitting, you know,
Yeah.
we said we'd discuss it again in 6 months. How is he with having everything together?
I think 6 months is kind of a short time period on an agreement. I think 6 months saying we'll do 25% for 6 months and go down to 20% or 20% and see if we want to go back or even less. You know, those are things that's part of the agreement. The basics of the agreement isn't so much the cost, the basics is what he's doing and how we're charging it. The percentages, I don't think that they're, you know, they didn't balk too much when I talked about going back to 20%. It's kind of up to us on that. I know they have a number in here, and that might be something that, I mean, if you want to go back or you want me to discuss with them of having some language that allows us, you know, give it very clear on whether we can go back and forth. but they have let us do that before, or talked about doing that before. I'm not as concerned about the 2 years as I am about the percentage, because if you get locked into 25% for 2, you know, we might find 6 months from now, like you said, we want to come back 6 months to evaluate, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe at 6 months, we want to go to 20%. I mean, the only thing that changes is that percentage out of the contract. The actual language of the contract really doesn't change, yeah. And how we charge it internally doesn't change.
Well, I'd like to see if you could go back and get that in there, that we have the ability at least to go down to the 20% if we want to in the future.
I know when we talked to him too, the last time, he said that he was making a lot of headway, that things were really going forward for him, you know, catching up on everything, situating everything else.
Yeah, I think that...
It's definitely something that we need.
Yeah, it's been a struggle. I mean, we've got our training down really efficient at this point. And I think that, you know, my directive over the last, even before the 6-month period, was, this whole year, was I need to get the safety committee and Mr. Martin to focus on that plan, that program. It's just something that we haven't been able to turn a corner on. The training was behind. We needed to get all of that put together. This last year, I think we did turn the corner. It's just, there's just lots of work,
Yeah.
you know, to do on that.
So what do we want to do with that table?
Should we table this until you contact them and ask them about the...
Grant, would it be acceptable within a motion to agree with the contract, provided we had provision to, you know, to modify that percentage within the term of the agreement?
I think that'd be fine. I mean, looking at the services agreement, it's just a short 4 to 5 page straightforward contract, and the only pertinent relevant term where it references the agreement commences on 1/6/2018, continues for 2 years, ending on 1/6/2020. And then on the second page, it references the annual fee of the $34,000 and the 25%. So,
Yeah, I broke that down. What I did was I took that and had a daily fee. How many days a week? It was like I believe it was $586. My other contract had that written on there.
$569.
$569?
Yeah.
So, that's something, you know, if we approve the contract saying, provided this sentence deals more with that. So if we went from 25% to 20%, which means 1 day a month, it's not so much we're going to get locked into 34,000, it's going to get locked into how many days a month we're utilizing, or what percentage. And I think that might be something we could go back. And the reason I ask is because we have 3 weeks between now and the next meeting. If they're willing to do that, then, and you're okay with that, then I could just go ahead and get it executed.
and so I just asked for a specific motion that it's the contract, give the city manager the authority to enter into a contract with the compliance services agreement contingent upon them agreeing to include a sliding scale from 25% to 20% of their costs based upon council discussion.
I make that motion what Grant just said.
I knew that was coming.
And you don't know the reasoning why they went to a 2-year contract?
I don't actually. It was something that I had to go back and double check because the other agreement was 1 year.
I'll support that.
I think they just don't want to come back in a year.
Okay. Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes. Now, Ray, on something like that, though, is there something that you can kind of keep an eye on what he's got going on? So he might, not saying that they would, but he could drag his feet and say, well, we still have this much more, where he could have gotten it done, actually. Are you still overseeing him, even though it's a separate contractor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we work pretty closely, and Tricia's on the safety committee, and I know we have plenty of conversations, even on that weekly staff meeting. He's in there every week.
Okay.
put Trish in
It's not just
charge.
me keeping him busy. He goes to all the departments, and stuff.
Yeah, how are a horde of guys, I know because for a while there, people were like, some of the guys were like, this guy's overboard. Are they starting to mesh together now and
Yeah.
realize, hey, this is our safety, okay.
Yeah, and that's our commitment.
Yeah,
If they see we don't waver.
yep.
All right, we'll move on to Resolution 2017-34.
This is the last item here on communications. This is a housekeeping issue. We don't do this, have this resolution every year. It's something that MDOT actually sent to me as a street administrator. I think our last resolution was 6 years ago, but it's basically just a performance resolution, indemnity resolution, since we're performing work in the state right away. It's pretty boilerplate what they want all their communities to pass.
Do I have a motion on Resolution 2017-34?
I'll make a motion, Resolution 2017-34 be approved.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on. If anyone wishing to address the council on any item can come up now, state your name and address for the record. And please, limited to 5 minutes per person.
My name is Jean Bradford, 2465 Trails Farm Road. I'm here to question your upcoming digital cable service that was announced in our last utility Norway information handout. If you have an analog television, this is stating we do not receive TV as of the 22nd of January. Is that correct?
No, it'll mean that you need to have either a TV that can accept a digital signal or a box that will accept that digital and transfer to analog.
However, this article says they do not know what kind of converter. It doesn't seem like it's very well planned out, an announcement in our utility bill. And you either buy this box, they don't have boxes.
We have
in
boxes.
stock. Well, not according to this.
We'll
handout.
have boxes. You have the option of buying a box, or you could rent a box.
Then my next question, when you rent the box, I'm assuming that is from the city of Norway?
Correct.
Is there a charge?
Yes.
How much?
We haven't finalized the charge.
Well, if this is going to take place the 22nd, who makes that decision?
Council would have to pass a resolution. We're going to bring that forward in January to finalize the cost of the rent, or the charge of the rent.
So as of the 22nd, if you do not have the digital capability, you will not have TV from the city of Norway. Is that correct?
That's correct. You will need to have some way to receive the digital signal. That's why we put it out on December 1st, to give people plenty of time to figure out if they need it, or if they need to contact us to figure out how to get it.
Well, when I asked personally, I did not receive that answer, how to get it. The next question I have is the cable service, since if you have to use a cable box, there's a lot of senior citizens in this town that have probably analog televisions, and, our TV service is far from perfect. There's a lot of repeated channels. I personally had 2 TVs destroyed by a voltage surge, and then they finally came out and put some kind of adapter on the telephone post. And for being a member of this city and using the services, the local services, I don't feel that we should be charged additional money for a cable box.
That's going to be the decision of the council, I suppose.
Well, is the television station, are they making money? Are they at a profit or are they at a loss?
The city's TV?
Correct, the communications,
On the video side, we are at a loss.
you're at a deficit,
Correct, on the video side, yes.
which is the television that I'm
But we have
discussing.
internet and phone along with the communications.
I realize that, and I do have those services.
Okay.
But I feel that it is going to be detrimental to like so many seniors, and including, we have 2 TVs that are digital capable, but one is not, and I don't plan on going out and buying another television, and I don't feel that I need to be penalized to buy a box. And do you have any comments?
Anybody have any comments?
Now, this is because of the cable itself, right? This isn't something that we're doing. It's from the provider.
Right. We receive all of our video signal digitally. And we actually to have equipment that transforms that digital signal into an analog signal so that people that have older TVs can receive that signal. You're paying the communications department, the TV or cable department, for every analog station that we put across, you can put in 7 digital stations for that one analog station.
The price wise, right?
No, the size.
Oh,
The amount,
the size.
the amount of.
Room or whatever we talked about.
So we pay
that.
so much for the size of bandwidth that we rent or secure. So on the internet side, by having the analog, the 73 channels of analog or 74 channels of analog, it's taking up that much more bandwidth, which that's the cost in your department. And so your internet you have to buy more bandwidth to account for that internet, increase in internet, and that's where we're really getting increased customers. Or we go digital, we can shrink the amount of analog or the amount of video out of that pipe, and we actually will save money or be able to utilize that extra bandwidth for our internet, which is probably a bigger complaint on us is if our speeds aren't up to snuff.
The internet.
Up to snuff, yeah. So that's why the companies like us, or most of them, have already gone to digital.
So like a customer now, they would have to have a box per TV. It wouldn't be just one box.
No, it's per TV.
Per TV.
Per TV, yeah.
And nobody knows how much that box will be. I mean, you
Well, we can
start
throw a
these-
number out there, but the council has to make a decision on how
Yeah.
much. We were talking about $5 a month. I'll throw the number out there, $5 a month. If you get an HD box, which you can get one with not an HD box, but one with a recorder, that could be $10 a month. You can go to Walmart and buy a box for, I think we priced them at $49 or $39, something on that order. It's no different than what we did with our wireless modems on the internet site.
Okay.
Yeah, the ones at Walmart rate, the ones I Googled that I put on the newsletter, those pictures, I think one was $19.99, and then of course, it goes up. I think the one next to it had more bells and whistles, and it could record and stuff like that, and it was like 25 or 30.
The technology is leaving
You can
us
buy your
behind. I
own,
mean,
right?
that's what's
That's
happening.
gonna be an option maybe, I mean, you guys gotta decide that, but
Yeah.
that's why I put the pictures of them, if you,
So they can go out and buy one and
then you own, yeah.
then you
Yeah.
own it. So you could buy one, what'd you say the pricing was from
$20.
I looked at
$20?
Walmart, I looked them up, the exact ones Jim told me, what did they need, and I looked it up, so, and I grabbed the cheapest one, was like $19.99, I'm pretty sure, and then, of course, then they went up, like all this tech stuff does.
But a basic one, just to
But a
convert
basic
over is
one's gonna be
$20.
$20, so
$20.
you could just buy one, and then you wouldn't have to rent. And I
And
don't
you-
know if that's all been decided yet.
And since the TV company is losing money, the management here is losing money, how long is it going to be before there's another increase in the rate?
Well, we look at the rates every year. I mean, you have to evaluate that in the budget every year. This
Well, that's
particular
because
box issue is, I mean, we go back, remember cable-ready TVs? You had to dial, and we had to go out and get a box, or we had to, the company, the cable
I
gave
mean,
us a
I
box.
know, yes, I
Those are the-
understand that.
the changes.
But what I'm saying is, like, when you just come out with a statement in this, as of January, that's it. You either have this box or you don't get television service. I think that's a short-term notice for a lot of the seniors in this area. There's a lot of people that just don't go out and buy a smart television. And now that I've expressed myself, I guess my decision is going to be, do I put forth additional money to support something that evidently is losing money? Maybe elsewhere you can get better service. And that's my only comment. And I haven't been attending the council meetings. The last council meeting that I attended, which I would bring up right now, and I'm hopefully under the 5 minutes. When we pay our property tax, I have said it in the past, I don't believe the city of Norway should charge an administration fee to collect taxes, especially when you're not using a credit card, if you're just paying a cashier's check, and how your administration fees are set up. The more taxes you pay, the higher your administration fee. If it's going to be an administration fee, let it be fair across the board. That's it.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Jean.
Well, I'm not happy, but I appreciate that.
Anyone else have any questions for the council or comments? If not, we'll move on to council comments. Scott?
I have nothing tonight. Just like to wish everybody a happy holiday now. You can't say anything. Happy and safe holiday for everybody. And according to the weather, we're supposed to get some pretty big storms this week. So please be aware of the people out there plowing and shoveling. And it is the holiday season, so if you could help an elderly person out, it'd be appreciated. That's all I got.
Brett?
I'd just like to say happy holidays.
Lee?
Merry Christmas to everyone. Ray, how are we coming on the ice rink?
We're coming. Not sure if we're gonna make it by the time the school closes for Christmas holiday, especially with the big snow. They're talking about coming on Thursday. It's kind of a bad time, but we'll, hopefully maybe by the end of the week, we'll have enough ice, and then, you know, if they can get in and plow that off over the weekend, then maybe we'll have it for the holiday. It's getting close.
That's all I have.
Especially with that snow coming, I've had concerns brought to me about some of the cleaning on sidewalk on Main Street, especially behind the light poles that are at mid-sidewalk, where it's not getting cleaned behind them. And so if you have difficulties trying to go from Dr. Hayes' office to the pharmacy, you're walking either through snow, you gotta go back out into the street to do it. And
I do know that, I talked with David today about the process. The first piece of sidewalk equipment that comes through is the skid steer. Skid steer's too wide to go to. When the sidewalk machine is complete with the safe routes, then it comes back down, he's supposed to come back down, and then he's gonna get in behind, and I think there's only one or two light posts that he can't do that, and it's over on the 700 block, the east side. So it's a lot of it could be a timing issue. I know I've been asked to have the guys get out of trucks and get out of equipment. It's just not, that's just not efficient to have them doing that. I mean, that could be difference of opinion, but that's not typically how you'd run an operation.